Can you talk about what everything has transpired today?
We want him here.
This university doesn't belong to a small group of protesters. It belongs to every citizen of North Carolina. Everybody in North Carolina. Everybody who goes to school here, everybody who lives and works here. The flag represents all of us. To take down that flag and put up another flag, no matter what other flag it is, that's antithetical to who we are, what this university stands for, what we have done for 229 years. The broad majority of this campus knows how to express their views without shouting, without violating university policy. That flag will stand here.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We gotta talk about the woke revolutionaries once again. And in this video, you guys are going to understand why I call these people woke revolutionaries. I know I use that term quite a bit, but I think this video is a good opportunity for me to explain why I always use that term, because it perfectly describes these individuals, okay? They are quite literally woke revolutionaries. The only extra word that I would throw in there is woke fake revolutionaries, right? Which is kind of what this story is about, okay? Because this story about the woke revolutionaries at Columbia University and across the United States of America at these college campuses, it has come full circle, okay? You have the mainstream liberal media who supported these individuals during the BLM riots, the Antifa riots, the Roe v. Wade riots. They supported these individuals, okay, and their violent protest, okay, but now all of a sudden they're not okay with it. Now all of a sudden they say it's not okay to be violent, and it's also not okay to protest peacefully, because there are people that are being arrested for violence, which they should be, but also people that are being arrested simply for just opposing Israel, okay? I mean, let's just be honest and say both of these things are happening at the same time. Again, I'm just saying, me personally, you know, I'm just going to sit back and let these woke victims, because best believe that's what this really is about, is who's the biggest victim. Because, I mean, let's be honest. All these individuals that are involved in this situation were against the right. They were pro-BLM, pro-Antifa, pro the Roe v. Wade riots. They're leftists. Everybody involved is essentially a leftist, okay? I'm just saying, this is the left imploding under the weight of the victimhood coalition.
You're just a white person. You're a white person. Get out. We don't like white people. Oh. Free Palestine!
Well, Richard, to your point, I think that's where that's the place we've all been sitting and watching this, going, what the hell is going on? What are these universities doing? Why aren't they doing something? And I'll echo the horror that this does look like January 6th. What a terrible example for our students.
The mainstream liberal media, what you just saw there from MSDNC, they have compared the woke revolutionaries and their riots to January 6th, okay? So now they're comparing it to January 6th. You had Nancy Pelosi say that these individuals were funded by Russia, okay, and Putin. So you have the whole left side of the political aisle, whether that be the establishment Democrats versus the woke revolutionaries. They're all attacking each other, right? They're all going at it, okay? And then you had some same individuals, like some of the students at UNC Chapel Hill, that decided to protect the American flag from being taken down again after the pro-Palestinian woke activists decided to take it down. But they decided to protect it so that they can't take it down again, which is something that you love to see, right? People actually standing up for America, right? In a conflict about two countries that are not America. Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? Now that takes me out to Columbia University, where the communist revolution started to really ratchet up recently, okay? As the communist revolutionaries have taken over at Hamilton Hall, okay? They broke into a building and they took it over.
We begin this hour, though, with an escalation in the ongoing protests on college campuses. Protesters are occupying a building at Columbia University. That's video of protesters breaking windows and doors to get into the building. Columbia is now threatening to expel any students occupying that building. The White House releasing a statement today saying, in part, President Biden respects the right to free expression, but protests must be peaceful and lawful. Forcibly taking over buildings is not peaceful. It is wrong. The education secretary telling Congress this morning that federal dollars could be at stake if schools don't take action. More than 1,100 people have been arrested nationwide during these protests. Police and protesters faced off at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. That ended with 13 arrests. Police also arresting several demonstrators at UNC Chapel Hill this morning. And nearly 80 people were arrested during protests on Monday at the University of Texas at Austin. We have a team of correspondents for you now from California to Capitol Hill. We're going to begin with NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton at Columbia. Antonia, I know you spoke with a Columbia student who saw everything play out in those overnight hours. What did he say about the occupation of that building? And what is the school doing now, if anything, to try to move students out?
Hey, Kate. Well, that's right. We spoke with this student who was in his dorm, which is right next to Hamilton Hall, the building behind me here that has now for hours been occupied by dozens of students inside. He watched all this transpire. He walked outside and he saw students grabbing items like gates and furniture and zip ties to barricade themselves inside. He also says that he saw physical altercation between counter protesters who tried to stop those students from blocking one of the entrances into Hamilton Hall. Take a listen to some of my conversation with him of what he describes as a very chaotic scene.
I think it's a little surreal. I mean, that's my mood, at least, just sort of in shock that this is happening, that it's been allowed to get this far. People that aren't living on campus no longer have access to it. I mean, I got several calls from my parents later.
Watching this now unfold, what we're witnessing here, Mr. Speaker, is an extremely dangerous police operation. They are now trying to get into the building. I believe that has to be Hamilton Hall that was taken over by students last night. And you can see they're outside one of the windows to the building. They have no idea what they're facing on the other side of this. And again, I go back to the reality is that none of these students will end up getting punished. Maybe the worst case scenario, based on what the president of Columbia has said, maybe a suspension. On a lot of these college campuses, Mr. Speaker, you know, God forbid you use the wrong well, the police now have entered the building, as you can see. One officer is in. A second officer now is climbing through the window. Others are standing by. They're following in suit. What is going to go on inside that building is you know, it can be up to anybody's imagination. What danger they may face on the other side, nobody knows. What we do know is that any students that end up getting arrested there probably are not going to be punished in New York. An extraordinarily dangerous situation.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. As I am now recording this video later, continuing to finish the video that I started earlier, the police are breaking into Hamilton Hall to remove the students, okay? So by the time you see the video, the students will probably be gone, right? But there was an interesting interview that was captured earlier during the takeover of Hamilton Hall, in which a reporter asked one of these fake revolutionary students about the fact that they're begging the university to feed them and to give them water, right? So they were like, hey, we deserve food and water. The university must allow us to get that. They must give us food and water after they broke into the facility, right? So you take over one of the university's buildings, and then the people that took it over were like, yeah, we want the university now give us food and water after taking over their building. And they were pressed on this by a reporter. Take a look.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in, I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately, in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building. Now would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it violently.
They haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
Yeah. So shout out to this reporter for calling out this fake revolutionary for what appears to be a case of cognitive dissonance. Okay. In the sense that this revolutionary is supposed to be, again, a revolutionary, but yet they're begging the university for food and water. And when called out about this, like, how does that work? How do you take over a whole building and then demand that the university give you food and water? This individual says, well, these students are paying for it, right? They're paying for it through the university, right? They're paying for, I guess, dining hall meals or something, which, you know, usually that's not delivered, right? Usually, okay, you have to go to the dining hall, right? You got to walk to the dining hall in order to cash in on that, right? But no. The limousine revolutionaries say you have to bring the food to me, okay? Even though, again, this type of delivery is not normal on college campuses. At least it wasn't when I was there, okay? But this tells you the sense of entitlement that these individuals have, right? They feel entitled to take over a building, and then they feel entitled to demand food delivery, okay? Just like they feel entitled to demand that the school divest from Israel and to provide more financial transparency and amnesty, right? This is what they're demanding. That is like the point of these protests, is to demand the school do something that, quite honestly, I think is above their pay grade. But again, this is the sense of entitlement that these individuals have. I mean, this person changed her story, right, when asked about the fact that they're demanding the school deliver them food and water into the building that they took over. So, well, I'm just demanding that they allow food and water, right? They don't violently block food and water from coming into the building. Now, what does that mean? What they mean is that, well, it is an act of violence to block food and water from coming into the building, because I'm pretty sure the people that are, you know, blocking the food and water from coming into the building, if that is happening, we really don't even know. I think that reporter suggested that that wasn't happening, like the school wasn't actually really doing that. But regardless, if that was to happen, again, these people are categorizing it as a form of violence. And I'm glad that this person said that, because they're acknowledging that when you block roads, okay, that is a form of violence, which is what these people have been doing as their main form of protest up until now, right? Up until they decided to ratchet up. It was like, hey, blocking random bridges in San Francisco, in New York, in Seattle, in Oakland isn't working, right? So now we've moved on to destroying college campuses. So yeah, I'm glad they're acknowledging that, yes, when you block people from being able to exercise their freedom to go where they want to go, okay, when you essentially kidnap people and entrap them, when you block roads, yes, that is a form of violence. I'm glad that you acknowledge that, okay? I hope that that standard just doesn't apply to you when your food and water is blocked, right, on the way to the building. I hope that applies to everybody else. So think about that when you are blocking roads for normal people to live their lives and to do what they got to do, right? That is a form of violence. I'm glad that we agree on that. But, you know, again, this is just a sense of entitlement. The same type of entitlement that these kids were taught in these colleges and universities, because these kids have been taught that, hey, you can change the world, that you're freedom fighters, right? That can stand up to the evil institution of capitalism that is oppressing us, right? Because, I mean, a lot of these woke professors, especially in these liberal arts classes, these professors are Marxists, right? So this Marxist ideology is very deep within this movement, right? Like, for example, everything they do it for Palestine, right? But it's not really for Palestine. It's more symbolic of their overall goal, which, again, is to take down capitalism. Like, for example, they renamed this hall Heinz Hall. Now, Heinz Hall is named after a Palestinian kid that was killed by Israel, okay, during the invasion. And they are taking over the building as a form of decolonization because they see the university as an evil capitalist institution, right? So when they do it for Palestine, the symbolism is the decolonization of Palestine from Israel, right? This is what they're protesting about, right? But they do it symbolically by taking over this building on Columbia's campus, again, as a form of solidarity with the people of Palestine. I hope that makes sense, right? That this is really just, again, Marxist communist protest. This is BLM 3.0, right? Because I would argue personally that the Roe v. Wade riots and the Antifa riots were BLM 1.5 and 2.0. Now we have BLM 3.0 here. But all of these movements, all of these protests, these uprisings, it's just communists, right? That's what they are. And they're lashing out against what they see as an evil capitalist institution that is responsible for oppressing people, okay? That's what they see when it comes to Israel, what's happening with Palestine. They see it as a result of capitalism. And again, this is why you have such a weird coalition of individuals that seem to don't really have anything in common, but they're coming together to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians, okay, who are conservative Muslims. Now, again, a lot of these woke revolutionaries are extremely progressive, okay? I mean, you got the BLM movement, you got the trans movement, you got all these people, people who I would argue if, you dropped them off in the middle of Palestine, I got questions about how they fare out there, right? I'm just saying, I got questions, okay, about whether or not they be accepted. Would there actually be some solidarity between the Palestinians and the woke revolutionaries if they were all in the same room, right? If they were all on the same piece of land? Just saying, I got questions. But again, the reason why the woke revolutionaries can identify with the Palestinians is because they see the Palestinians as oppressed, and their oppression is a result of capitalism. It is a result of the relationship between the United States of America and Israel, okay, two capitalist nations, in which, because of capitalism, Israel is basically being allowed to do what they're doing to the Palestinians. And that's why I want you guys to really understand about this, okay, that what this really is about really is the larger Marxist movement that has become so prevalent on these college campuses, the same type of ideology that has been taught and fed to these students through the university and is now kind of backfiring on these universities because they've let their experiment get out of control, right? It's not really because these people care that much about the Palestinians, because again, I would argue if they actually live together, there'd be some problems. It's really about them exercising what they feel is a protest that can usher in Marxism, communism to push their agenda, right? This is why they don't really care that much about any of the other humanitarian situations going on across the world, right? When you have, people getting slaughtered left and right with other conflicts, they don't give a damn about that, okay? Because they can't use that in order to push their far left agenda, but they can use the Palestinians, and that's the sad part, because I do feel bad for the Palestinians, and I feel bad for the Israelis as well too, the innocent people that are involved. And that comes from an actual, real, legitimate place of concern for human life. But I don't think that that's where a lot of these activists are coming from. I think they're hijacking the Palestinians and their plight the same way that they did with BLM, the same way that they did with the Roe v. Wade protesters in order to push their own agenda. And I think that's the saddest part about it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.